Good morning, YouTubers. John Gilkison, AeroStealth here. Today is Friday, December 19th, 2025. And I have a quick video for you on the recent announcements by Ford that they were going to discontinue making the Ford Lightning. And then within a few days, the European Union announced that they were going to do a EU turn on the fossil fuel ban of 2035 and allow 90% fossil fuels. And of course, we know what that really means. They've caved in, basically. And now, as I like to say, I'm not a Nostradamus. I can't see the future. I think electric vehicles will take over. I think China right now is at 60% sales on electric vehicles, and it's climbing every year there. Norway's at 98%, 97% or something. And they're an unusual case. Norway funded their switch to electric drive using their oil and gas revenues from the North Sea. And I think that's one of the best uses they could have made of it, and helping themselves go out of business in the future, fortunately. Now, China, for example, doesn't really have any indigenous oil and gas. And they also have a really bad air pollution problem in their major cities. So this is one of the reasons they had a big incentive to switch. Not only that, they couldn't compete with the legacy automakers on internal combustion engine vehicles. And the electric car spare was a brand new technology which they could develop. And they're developing solar and wind at the same time, so it all fits together for them. And they are now dominating the world market in electric cars. They really are. They sell to South America, they sell to Southeast Asia, Africa, and the European Union, some. And I'm not sure about Canada. I know they sell in Mexico, for example. South America, Central America are all buying electric cars. And the United States is just going backwards with the Trump administration. So I see a future in which electric cars are going to dominate. And the Nokias and the Osborne effect, that the car maker's still sticking with, well, like Kodak, the car maker's still sticking with internal combustion engines, are going to be able to sell in their local markets for a while. But that is going to erode over time, and I think what they're trying to do is pull as much profits out of them as they can, and the climate be damned. And one of my incentives for shooting this video was a long time ago. I made up a chart, and I know you all, most of you understand parts per million and all this, but I just wanted to talk about how critical this is. Transportation accounts for 27%, I believe, of our carbon emissions. So we cannot decarbonize without decarbonizing our transportation. And not only that, as long as you are still using fossil fuels to power your transportation fleets, you're going to continue to use it in other spheres, whether it's natural gas for heating, for generating electricity, and so forth. And the only way is we need to decarbonize everything as much as possible. And that said, pre-industrial, we come out of the ice age, last ice age, we're around 280 parts per million. And probably pre-industrial, we were somewhere around 320 parts per million. let's just use 300 as a round number. 3/10 of a part of 1,000 parts per million. Okay, 3/10. Now we're at 426 or something, so we're well over 4/10. It's over. That's a 12% increase. Okay, and there's a thing called a doubling. If you double the CO2 from, let's say, 320 to 540, that's a measure of the climate sensitivity. And they're now saying that that's somewhere around 4 to 5 degrees Celsius, ultimately, of what it's going to coast up to, no matter what we do. So we're in really serious trouble. But I wanted to give you a visual. I made up this visual for parts per minute because it's hard for a lot of people to visualize. It's hard for me. So I did it for myself, I guess. See if we can get all this in here. Yeah. I wish the lines were darker. I'm trying to hold it still. But all I did was draw a cube. And I drew 10 cubes on the bottom. It goes 10 cubes up. 10 times 10 is 10 cubes deep. 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. So, and 1,000, each cube represents 1,000 parts per million. Okay? Just one of these cubes represents 1,000 parts per million. And right over here, we can get it here, is 4/10. You can see it shaded in there at the bottom. That's a cube, 1,000 parts per million, and I've shaded it in to represent 4/10. That's how little of a constituent gas, carbon dioxide, is in the atmosphere. And I don't think that's something most people appreciate. I once had a friend who was always trying to tell me, well, I just don't believe that it can cause this much warming because it must be volcanoes or something, he said. He didn't understand that 3/10 of a parts per million, okay, of 1,000 parts per million, 300 parts per million, okay, was warming the planet up from minus 4 degrees Fahrenheit up to 56 degrees Fahrenheit. In other words, 60-degree Fahrenheit span just from 300 parts per million. Without it, without carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and other greenhouse gases, the average temperature of this planet would be minus 4 degrees. And that's a no bueno. That's really rough. And even the ice ages, it was 280 parts per million. So we just came out. We're in an interglacial period, and we've increased it from a little over 300 parts per million to well over 400 parts per million. What do you think that's going to mean? If 300 parts per million does 60 degrees of Fahrenheit warming, what do you think 400 or 500 is going to do? And this stuff, carbon dioxide, stays in the atmosphere for 1,000 years. So every time you burn a gallon of gas, for 1,000 years, 20 pounds of CO2 goes into the atmosphere for that gallon of gas, and it stays there. It's cumulative. It just adds up and up and up and up. That's why I think the fossil fuels have got us. They've literally rigged the rig is up. You know, they've rigged the game, and somehow they got the whole European Union to turn around. And it's all about economics. Well, what kind of economics are we going to have on a dead planet? You know? None. It's insane. It's this insanity. We're just headed towards the cliff. And it's already too late. Suzuki says that, and I happen to agree with him. It's just the pace. the more CO2 we keep pouring in the atmosphere, the faster this is going to accelerate. You know, we won't have time to even adapt or respond. Our cities are going to be, the coastal cities are going to be flooded. Temperatures are going to start killing not only millions of people a year, but we're going to lose food production around the world. We're already losing it, and this is insanity cubed. And the Trump administration, I can kind of understand them because he's just ignorant. I like what Carville said about him. Carville said, you know, someone needs to talk to him, take him aside. He's talking about Rob Reiner being stabbed to death and the comments that Trump had made. Someone needs to take him aside, someone who cares about him, and tell him he can't be doing this. But he said, personally, he says, I don't care. He said, I wouldn't piss down Trump's throat if his heart was on fire. And I'm the same way. I wouldn't. I have no clue why a majority of the voters picked this clown to destroy this country for the next 3 years, 4 years when they elected him. He's doing the same thing he did in the first administration, only twice as bad. What did they think they were going to do? Get a different result? Or is it just because they didn't want to elect a black woman president? People have no rational self-interest that they're voting for when they do this. But anyway, that's my rant on the whole thing. I think Ford is clueless. The legacy car makers have had a decade to start building out factories to make batteries at scale and to produce electric vehicles at scale. And when they do this, when they produce them at scale and sell them for a low price, people will buy them because they are a superior product. And we're right on the cusp of 400 or 500 mile range batteries being commonplace for electric cars. In this coming year, 2026, they're arriving. And these people are doing U-turns on electric vehicles. Have they lost their goddamn minds? They have. Now, that said, again, I think that electric vehicles they're just going to take over. And all this stalling and stuff isn't going to help. All Ford has done is bury their own bottom line. They're going to go out of business if they keep it up. So's GM. So's Chrysler. They can't stay in business making gasoline cars. Who are they going to sell them to? Once you've sold them to the fools in your own country who's rigged the game in their favor, you've got no other markets around the world. That market is gone. So, I'm sorry. I have no sympathy for Ford, GM, Chrysler, or now the European Union. I got no sympathy for them whatsoever. The German automakers have sat on their hands for the last 10, 15 years also. And they've screwed themselves royally. And now here's where we are. And they want a bailout. They want to stay in business making gas cars. And they can't do it. And you give them all this money and they make all these promises to make electric cars, and they take all the money and then they don't use it to do what they're supposed to do. I say they need to go out of business if that's the case. I'm sorry. But all they've done is cede the electric car market to Tesla in the United States, because that's all they make. And Hyundai, we own a Hyundai. It's a great car. Kia, there's other people making electric cars. So we don't have as much choice as we had before. But anyway, that's my video for today. I don't like to run over 15 minutes, so I did good. A rant is called for every now and then, so everybody have a great, great, great electric drive day. Bye-bye.